Hello, everyone. It's been a minute, and some stuff has happened since we last recorded. So we're doing a little we're doing some multitasking here. By the time this video comes out, the Critics' Choice will be tomorrow, where we will get our first group of winners since the Golden Globe Awards. It's been a minute since we had that, obviously delayed because of the fires. So yeah, we'll give our predictions for who we think is going to win there, but I think we'll have to start by addressing the big thing that's been happening in the whole award space the last week, which is Karla Sofía Gascón.
Her very horrible, no good, very bad
Yeah,
week.
bad week.
That this is the most contentious, scandal ridden awards campaign, awards season ever. And none of the guilds have, we've only had the Golden Globes.
Hmm.
This is insane. I mean, what could happen in the next like month is ridiculous.
I don't
Anyway,
even I don't even want to think about it,
crazy.
but yeah, but let's get into, I guess we should quickly touch on it before we get into all of our Critics' Choice predictions. The Karla Sofía Gascón controversy, like we said, her tweets came out. Obviously, very bad tweets. Pretty much any sort of minority or group like that, she came forward. Just not good. And then she went on her whole rampage of like I think she pretty much ignored Netflix and their PR team and went behind their back to do an hour-long interview on CNN in Spain. And she continued to not say some. She's just been very defensive and really not apologize and continued to like stand around and say that they are like misinformation, even though they are things she tweeted. So it's a whole thing, and it's something transcended just the whole like award space. Like I have people who know that I like movies and awards and stuff and don't really ever talk to me about it, or then like, what's going on with the whole actress in Emilia Perez? And I'm like, oh
Mhm.
wow, so gotten that far.
It has legs. This story has
It
legs.
does, it does.
Um,
So how do you think this will affect Emilia Perez's? We can't really tell at this point because Critics' Choice, which we'll get
no,
into, they've already voted before all of this happened. So I guess we'll first be able to tell with SAG and BAFTA. But I don't know. There's no telling how much it will truly affect the film overall.
I do think we're in an interesting place because usually when we have these big controversies around films, the actors are bulletproof. They are the ones that people are sympathetic for, that they pity, that they're going through this. You know, you look at 2018, which was I think the previous time when we had this amount of scandal in one award season with films like Green Book and Bohemian Rhapsody. Despite those films' contentious issues in other places, the actors went unscathed. Rami Malek and Mahershala Ali winning their categories because of it. And so I think that's what's so shocking about this is because the prime person that we're supposed to empathize with is also the person that is inflicting the most harm on this movie's campaign. Now, I don't think it's fair that every single component, every single part of this movie gets thrown under the bus because of Karla Sofía Gascon. I also don't think I'm not seeing a world where this movie goes 0 for 13 because of this
No.
scandal. Um, but I do think that's what's unfortunate about this film in particular is that this was a film that was wearing its progress on its sleeve and was trying to be an inclusive message film. That's what Carla's speech when the film won Best Picture at the Golden Globes for musical comedy was all about. And so that's where we run into issues here because it's like the general tenor of what you want the movie to be awarded for and is an achievement for is being undercut by the actor involved in this situation. And so that's where I think we run into issues with Emilia Perez overall. I do not think it's winning Best Picture. I just don't think. I didn't think it would do that well in a preferential ballot before because it would get some high votes for sure. It's the most nominated film this year, but it's bound to get number 10 votes. And I think certainly now there's going to be a lot of number 10 votes. And I just don't see a lot of passion for the movie outside of like song, I guess, but that feels more an inevitability. Maybe international feature, though I think I'm Still Here is now going to give it a real run for its money. And then Zoe Saldana, which we can talk about. That to me, setting aside the controversy, I think supporting actress is the most interesting race this year, the way it's shaping up. And I don't know yet, and we won't know based on Critics' Choice whether Zoe Saldana is going down with the ship with this. I don't think she should. I think she handled it gracefully. I think the comment that she made at that Q&A, I guess more than a week ago at this point, were tactful, and I think honestly is the statement that I think should be out there. But there might be a lack of of drive for the movie overall that she may unfortunately have to carry. It'll be really interesting how people deal with Zoe Saldana in this situation. What do you think?
I think it might be similar to the way I think the film has been talked about a lot already, where people are, even the people who don't like the film are still like, well, okay, Zoe Saldana was still the best part of it. I do think she's able to be separated from the rest of it. So it could hurt her, but right now I'm not thinking that it will. I think she'll actually probably get some more sympathy from people in the industry as well. The fact that she
Mhm.
is like being dragged down by this whole thing potentially. So I don't think it'll hurt her that much. We'll talk about it. Because I think she'll end up winning. But we'll talk about it when we get into our Critics' Choice predictions. I think she could still end up just sweeping. Song, there's just no other strong competition there. Like I don't
Yeah.
think going to win there. I don't think the Sing Sing song is going to win there. So I think it'll obviously just win that. And its weakest thing of the top three categories most people were predicting it to get, I do think, is international feature. Because as Emilia Perez go down, I think I'm Still Here continues to go up. So I think that would be the place where I would see it's most likely going to potentially lose some steam and end up losing. But those other two categories I still feel pretty good about. And yeah, it's just unfortunate also that transgender acting nominee is now marred by
Yeah.
all this controversy.
It is unfortunate, though. I also think that, listen, transgender people are people. They are
Mm-hmm.
afforded the same. In events like this, I think it is so disappointing to be in this world, and we can't be celebrating this actor more. I don't want to be. I'm using actor as a non-gender term. I'm not
Yes.
misgendering Karla Sofía Gascón. But I also think, listen, a part of acceptance is accepting that everybody can be every sort of people, and this is the decisions that Karla Sofía Gascón has chosen for herself, and I think we have to respond in kind. So, yes, definitely upsetting, and I think that Jacques Audiard's comments, Netflix's decisions that we've learned about, are reflecting that there's a lot of I think borderline anger with how this is happening. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple of weeks ago, this movie was on the way to potentially, it could have won Best Picture. I think there was
Yeah.
enough space for it, and I think it could have combated the preferential ballot. But now I think it's going to be a little tricky. It's interesting that as far as your order, and we both agree those are the three that it could win. There's no other
Mm-hmm.
category it has a chance.
Editing, I
And
think it still
so
has.
I just that to me, because it's not. I don't know. It didn't strike me as that flashy enough to be able to stick out in that way.
I
But
think it's the most.
editing it's just such a crapshoot this year. I just don't.
Mhm.
Again, I feel like personally, I continue to believe you either go with what's winning sound or what's winning Best Picture, and that's not Emilia Perez in either category anymore. So
Mhm.
I struggle to think it will win that. We'll get to supporting actress because it's an
Yes,
interesting conversation this week in particular.
for sure. And I guess the final thing I'll say on this is all of these companies check these actors' social media, spend millions of dollars on awards campaigns. That's insane to me, especially like more discovery actors where they already have PR teams behind. It's just such an easy thing to do that you can like get an intern to go for one day and then you won't have this whole issue. So I think that's
Yeah,
something. I mean, I think it's insane that that didn't already happen in this situation, but
yeah.
that's, here we are.
And listen, there's a bigger question of should this derail a campaign? Should tweets have ended Kevin Hart's chance at hosting the Oscars? Should tweets, have anything to do with this? In the end, this is just the world we live in, and that's not that is a question for another time. The
Mhm.
world that we're in now, tweets matter. People react to them very strongly, and why companies do not feel necessary before putting millions of dollars into these campaigns. It's just. I think honestly, it's borderline. It's unprofessional. Like you are putting all these people at a risk for one person's comments. I mean, Zoe Saldana,
Mhm.
if she loses, I think you can solely tie into this
Yes.
sort of discourse and these developments, and that is, I just think it's unprofessional. I really feel that way. You're letting your talent down.
Extremely. Extremely unprofessional. Agreed. I don't think she'll be attending. I think it was reported she will not be attending this ceremony we're about to talk about. Critics' Choice Awards
Mhm.
prediction coming out tomorrow. The ceremony will occur. I think it occurs on the CW still. Yeah. So winners. Let's get into it. Starting off with Best Picture. You are going with Anora. I am going with Brutalist. Walk along with me here for a second because I was looking through the Critics' Choice and their And I noticed a trend. So last year, the film that got the most wins was Oppenheimer, and it also won Best Film. The year before, Everything Everywhere had the most wins, and it also won Best Film. The year before, The Power of the Dog had the most wins, and it also won Best Film. The year before, Nomadland, most
Wait,
wins, won.
Power of the Dog? What do you mean? One best film?
It won Best Film at the Critics' Choice Awards, and it had the most wins at that ceremony.
Well, oh, so you're saying whatever film has the most wins at the Critics' Choice wins the Best Picture at the Critics' Choice?
Yes, you would have
Okay.
to go back to
For a
Spotlight.
second, you were like going through like I thought you were making a correlation between what wins Best Picture at the Oscars, and I'm like, but Coda won. I
No,
didn't
no,
dream that, did
about
I?
previous Critics' Choice Awards. So you have Oppenheimer, Everything Everywhere. What was the one I just said? Power of the Dog.
Power of the
No,
Dog. And so to be clear, this is what you think you're going based on your projection of how many wins you think The Brutalist will win. Then you think it'll win Best Picture.
yeah, I think you have to then you
Okay.
go with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You have to go all the way back to 2015 with Spotlight, which didn't have the most wins. Mad Max
Mhm.
Fury Road did.
Yeah.
But that one.
Which, to be honest, I do feel that 2015 is a very synonymous year because it was where there was no front runner. All the guilds disagreed, and I feel like that seems to be the direction we're heading in. Maybe Brutalist can just get PGA, DGA, Critics' Choice, BAFTA, and then it won't. It'll reveal itself. But right now, I think SAG is going to go in one direction, PGA might go in another. Like it's a little all over the place. So I looked at that Spotlight year as maybe being indicative of this. Listen, Brutalist could very likely. I wouldn't be surprised. I just think that Honora plays more to their sensibilities and their tastes. I also think that this is the voting body that I think will best respond. Like the way that we think Wicked is going to play well with SAG, I think that Honora does play well with the Critics' Choice voter. Um, and yeah, I see it winning potentially more here than it will any other place. I could see it winning screenplay here. I could see it winning editing here. And so I feel pretty strongly about it also because I do think The Brutalist was maybe a little too late. I wonder if the screeners, which got sent out to everybody, if that affected their viewing, where I think Honora had enough time to gestate for people to see it in theaters. Because by the time The Brutalist went wide, I think the voting was closed for Critics' Choice.
Yes, it was in
yeah.
their portal though. Watch it if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
want.
I do think if you watch it on a portal, I don't think you're voting for Best Picture. I think if you saw it in theater,
Maybe
then you
not.
vote for Brutalist Best Picture. That's how I feel about the film. So it could, but again, they seem to be a little bit cooler sometimes. Like they'll go for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, instead of
Yeah,
like 1917.
I would say this reminds me of the movies we've been comparing it to, like Aroma and Power of the Dog, where it might not like with the Academy quite their taste enough to like win on a preferential ballot, but with critics I think it will be because it's not like they're ranking them here, it's everyone picking their number one. They pick out of the 10 options, this is my number one, which is why I think Honora, it makes sense. I'm just like looking at the other things that could win. It doesn't, I think if there's a spotlight here, I honestly think Conclave makes more sense. It would have similar wins with picture, screenplay, and ensemble, which Spotlight all won, whereas Honora, I think it would really just be picture and screenplay and maybe editing. But even then, I don't know. Conclave makes a little more sense to me
Yeah.
as that. But I
I
don't know.
also think I think actress is in play here more than anywhere else, just because like the Demi Moore. Again, we're dealing in a world where we've had like 2 extra weeks of
Mhm.
campaigning that the voters didn't have when they were voting, and so Demi Moore has really solidified herself. And I also think because Fernando Torres got in, it kind of then made that the race, and that's when the Mikey Madison talk I think went firmly into the rearview mirror. But before Fernando Torres came in, I do think many people were still thinking she was a front runner. So that's where I think Mikey Madison still could surprise. In the end, Nora I feel like there's a little bit more enthusiasm for where The Brutalist I still think is going to come up short given the voting body, the expansive voting body of who's here. I could see them thinking this is a little bit of a colder film with
Do
The
you think it's
Brutalist.
much
So,
older than Aroma or Power of the Dog? I know it's more daunting
well,
because it's.
I mean, I do think that the Critics' Choice membership has vastly expanded since Roma, and even then, like I don't think there was really like you could say maybe the favorite was like that year's Honora, but I don't know. I think Sean Baker has built up a lot of credibility. I think that we talk about the tonal balances of the movie. It's a comedy, it's a drama. I think and it's a little bit more straightforward, and I think more to Americans' taste than The Favorite. Favorite is very European. And so, listen, if Brutalist wins, it definitely fits a certain narrative that's clear. But listen, we're up in the air. We're coming off of an award show that was like a month ago, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it is also worth mentioning these were voted for the Friday after the Golden Globes, so like 5 days after the Golden Globes, where Brutalist and The Perez were the big winners. So either people were like, "Oh, Nora didn't win anything. I really want to vote for it here." That could be a case, or also like Emilia, Perez, and the Brutalist were up front and ahead, and that's what was on everyone's mind and what they could have voted for. But I don't think Emilia Perez was ever going to win at a critic's body like this. And I'm just going with the past 9 years. This is kind of just why I'm going with it, because it feels safe. The past 9 years, the film that won the most awards ended up winning Best Film, and I feel like that's probably going to be The Brutalist. I guess you could maybe say Wicked if it ends up surprising in a few categories and gets a few techs, but I would say The Brutalist right now. But I'm not super confident in it. I think it'll be one of those three. So next one, I think this can be a quick one. A sweep for Mr. Brady Corbet for The Brutalist.
I mean, listen, this just seems to be the general direction of where we're going. I think the AI controversy is just, it's been forgotten at this point. Not that it's irrelevant, but I think most people in the industry are aware that that sort of AI technology has already existed for a while.
That happened after.
Yeah. And it's not I don't think anybody who honestly judges cinema can look at that movie's accomplishments and say that like Brady Corbet didn't achieve something and it was only achieved through AI. So I just think that if that was the one knock on the movie, it's not going to prove to be a knock long term. And so I think that he will most likely win this handedly everywhere: DGA, BAFTA, on the way to the Oscar. Also, I'm not sure, when did that story break, like in terms of
that wouldn't have impacted Critics' Choice votes here, the AI stuff.
So this will just be further cementing his reign, and I think that's the interesting thing, is that because that story kind of broke at the best time for The Brutalist, because the Emilia Perez scandals have kind of shadowed it, and no voting group was voting in the immediate aftermath of that story breaking. So it's kind of it's disappeared like cotton candy in water.
It has. It's pretty much gone. And yeah, I just think he's going to sweep the entire season. I don't really see who the strong competitor is. I think some of these other people will be awarded in other places. And he's like the Jane Campion or the Alfonso Cuarón for those kind of films. Even if it doesn't picture, it's like the director achievement.
Is shocking for he's made what, Vox Lux? This is his second major film, and even Vox Lux was not that well known. That's remarkable.
Moving on to a different category. I think this is close, but speaking of when it did, as we mentioned, occur 5 days after the Golden Globes, and this kind of reminds me of the year where I'm pretty sure Jessica Chastain won the SAG Award before the Critics' Choice Awards, and that kind of influenced their vote there, where I think before that they would have gone for Kristen Stewart, but then after they see Jessica Chastain win, she gives a good speech. She's obviously becoming the Oscars, that they end up switching over to her. Then the critics' favorite, which I do think in this case would be Mikey Madison. I think most of the members probably had not voted until after the Golden Globes. I just think after seeing that speech has remained in everyone's mind for the whole week afterwards. Talking point that I just feel like the narrative is too strong, that I just think she's going to get the most votes.
It's a way to give an above the line award to the substance, and she's a representative of that. It's a physically demanding performance, but I mean, her best moment, of course, is it's that ocular acting that you always love to say in the bathroom mirror. So yeah, I think that this makes sense. But look to Mikey Madison if Honora has a really great night, But even when they have great nights, I remember when Everything Everywhere won everything except Michelle Yeoh and Cate Blanchett won. So even if Honora has a great night, I mean, Mikey Madison might not come along for the ride. So I continue to think this Demi Moore is charting a course that's very strong towards the Oscar.
I agree. She's clearly the front runner right now. I think she'll probably win at the remaining precursors that we do have, and it's also, The Substance is a well-liked film by critics as well, so I think that's a pretty easy one. This is one where we're going to disagree. Actor, I have Adrian Brody winning, and you have Mr. Timothée Chalamet. I just feel like when it comes the Critics Awards, I don't know. This is iffy for me because I really could see it being me. But when it comes to critic, I feel like they're going to go with The Brutalist and Adrian Brody just because that's what critics liked more than A Complete Unknown. And I do think it was also just more. It came out. He just won the Golden Globe a few days beforehand. He gave a good speech. It's just the more, I don't know. It feels like the more Critics' Choice kind of pick rather than Timmy for because Rami Malek didn't win here for Bohemian Rhapsody. Austin Butler didn't win here.
It was Christian Bale, I think.
Yeah.
So, look, listen, you could very well be right. I think the only reason I'm sensing it could be Timothy Chalamet is I do think like CCA is proving to be what the Golden Globes used to be pre 2020. And I think in that world, Timothy Chalamet could very well pull it off. I also think A Complete Unknown was surging at the time of voting. It was around that time where people were really paying attention to it, which then led to it a week later getting 8 Academy Award nominations to the surprise of many, not to us, because we kind of were eyeing it that it could do very well. But like around this same time that voting was closing, James Mangold was getting the DGA nomination. So I think that's kind of where I'm going with. And I do think that there could be a response to not only give A Complete Unknown something, they're going to want to see it get something, but I do think Timothy Chalamet at this point has proven himself. And they might feel like, listen, Adrian Brody has his, Conclave isn't our favorite movie, but we really love Timothy Chalamet. And I think Dune Part 2 continues to help him. The fact that that movie is also in contention in all these picture categories means that he's in 2 Best Picture nominees. And I don't know if anybody else can say that. They certainly can't say they're the lead of 2 Best Picture nominees.
No.
So, that other movie might secretly be helping him, especially with a group like CCA, which we know probably very much enjoyed Dune Part 2. So I think all of that makes me think that it could happen. And this could be the start of something, especially as we lead on to SAG, where I think you would agree he has a very good shot at winning because of how much they love the movie. So yeah. So again, just presenting the other side. I know you have the Brutalist taken care of for CCA. So I was like, just in case, just to make this episode a little interesting, let me go with Timmy C.
Yeah, it's definitely close. This is one of, I think, the 2 acting races that I think is like a really actual race, at least currently. But yeah, I definitely could see it happening. I do think Chalamet is more, I think at this point, like beloved by a critics group than Butler was, or even Malik was, when they were voting for them. So it could definitely happen. Like you said, I think critics in general really love Dune Part 2. And I'm sure they love him in that film as well. So I'm sure that would also give him a boost. Just right now, I'm looking at the past with the musical biopics and Brody just like kind of doing really well with the groups, whereas Chalamet hasn't. And it was really just been Brody and Domingo up front with the critics group. So it's close, but we'll see. Moving on to another one where we disagree. Supporting actor.
I'm very torn on this because I think the conversation that we're having now is so different than the conversation we really should be having, because if Ariana Grande loses, it still doesn't tell us whether Zoe Saldana is going down with the Emilia Perez ship. So that's where it's really tricky. And we won't really have another opportunity to see that until SAG? And that'll be after Oscar voting closes, correct? Or BAFTA, like that it's really tricky. We're not going to really know. If Ariana Grande wins, then we can see that, maybe she's charting a path that proves that she's a very strong contender, regardless of the scandal with Emilia Perez. We don't know. I think that Wicked, of course, yes, it might not be the highest grossing movie of the year, but I do think it was the Barbie of this past year. It was the phenomenon that everybody saw, everybody talked about, everybody's aware of. And I do think the critics are going to respond to that. They obviously loved it. It was one of the nomination leaders for them. And so it makes sense in my mind that it could win something in the above the line category. And of course, this is the one that makes the most sense because there's less competition and there's a clear narrative for this person that you knew surprising you. I do think we're going to have a different conversation post CCA when we actually get into the more recent trends, because of course I've been following this, but Ariana Grande has been doing a press run that I cannot believe. Like she hit, awards chatter, and Scott Feinberg did a really good interview with her, really establishing that this is somebody who's been successful for the last 15 years. She did Smartless, where she came off fantastic, which was, if you haven't heard, it's one of the best podcasts with Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, Sean Hayes. She did Graham Norton. She got Billie Eilish to moderate a Q&A with her. To me, what this is telling me is she's running the Eddie Redmayne campaign. I think if she gets on stage and gives one speech, I think it could make a big difference.
It's over.
Yeah.
This make or break, I think, for Saldana and Grande. I think if she wins here, then she's able to turn the momentum, because I think right now it's like really at a breaking edge with Zoe Saldana. If Grande wins here and gives a great speech, there's still just enough time for her to win at SAG, and then probably not BAFTA, but SAG and Critics' Choice. Great speech. I think that could maybe still turn her to win. I just feel like obviously the Emilia Perez controversy has not affected this voting period, and she just won the Golden Globe 5 days before the voting ended for this, and she gave a great speech. It's Emilia Perez. It's not like it was hated by this voting body. It's still got a ton of nominations. I do think she is the indisputable, probably most people's favorite part of the film. I still think that they're going to be
deserving of awards recognition for the film. I will agree with that. Let me ask you this. Other than that, that note that if you want to award Emilia Perez, this is the most deserving part. And I think maybe some people feel that way about Ariana Grande, maybe the crafts, but I do think a lot of people love her, and that's what they love about the movie. What is my feeling is that I think Zoe Saldana is helped because of the long-standing relationships that she's had. Like after a quarter century of work, she's worked with a lot of people that look on her fondly, and that's helping her. Like there's no denying that's part of her campaign. I do think CCA would then be the least likely, like the least amount of people that like have that affinity. Like you get what I'm saying? Where, the Oscars and SAG, those are people that have worked with her most likely, other than the people who've interviewed her. I do think that could be the one roadblock in the way for her, because I do think if you put the two performances side by side, it's a real competition. You put the two songs side by side of El Mal and Popular, it's, or No One Mourns the Wicked. I mean, you could pick a number of them for Ari. To me, this is really fascinating because we're not going to know. Basically, we're really not going to know. We're not going to know going forward based on who wins this. What happens if Zoe wins? We could still see the scandal sink her later. If Ari wins, there's still a chance that she's not able to catch up. But it's really fascinating.
Yeah, and I do think if she wins this and SAG, it's still the fact that BAFTA will occur, and I think Zoe will win BAFTA no matter what. BAFTA will occur during voting period. SAG will not affect the voting period at all. So I think that those precursor package will help her more than it will Grande. So we'll see. It's definitely a tight race right now, and this and SAG are definitely her best shot at getting in. So close call for sure. Not a close call. Supporting actor. Do we need to?
Just that I do think there's a world, because of Real Pain missed out on picture, that Ed Norton could surprise long term, but I don't think it'll be here. I think this is a voting group that votes on TV and film. I think because of that, we've talked about it, the Succession kind of victory lap that he's having will help him in a movie that I do think is well liked. So he will likely win here. But I could see a Sylvester Stallone turn for Mr. Edward Norton down the line. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's probably the number 2 at this point. But I agree. If he would not be here, it's a pretty easy sweep for him. He's also swept the critics, smaller groups. So yep. Ensemble, another disagreement. I am going with Conclave and you are going with Wicked. What I've found is they usually don't tend to go with the movies that win like ensemble at actual SAG ensemble, like a Black Panther or stuff like that.
This is what I'm going back to with a lot of these awards, is that it's not just the critics circle groups, or the critics, like we're not just dealing with people from LAFCA and the New York Film Critics Circle, like we're dealing with, entertainment journalists as well. So like I think there is going to be a populist bent to some of these awards, and that's where Wicked can benefit. And I don't know, I feel like, yes, it's a two-hander, but I do think, Jonathan Bailey getting a SAG nomination for supporting actor, I do think Michelle Yeoh, Jeff Goldblum, Bowen Yang, there's an ensemble here beyond just the two leads that I think people would want to acknowledge. And I do think SAG Ensemble, it doesn't always line up, but it lines up enough that if you are predicting it to win SAG Ensemble at SAG, I do think that you could pick it here. I just continue to think that I don't know if Conclave has the driving force to get it across the finish line in any of these major categories other than screenplay. I just don't know if it has that sort of passion. Where like Trial of the Chicago 7 year would be like the comparison, because I don't know if that movie had that level of passion, but it was the pandemic year, right? That was the 2021 season. And I do think that film benefited from the Aaron Sorkin connection, and there wasn't really that much competition. I mean, what was really up against it? Minari, where this year we have a lot of great ensembles. So I think it's the idea that it like fits that sort of mold. I don't know if that means that I think it'll get there. It's tough because I feel like with a lot of these other ensembles, like there are people like really like rooting for them to win the individual categories. Like, I don't know how often the ensemble is the consolation prize for not being a major contender in any of them. I feel like you should be a front runner in one of the major categories in order to win ensemble, because it means that you have that voter group maybe supporting you. So let's say you're a voter voting for supporting actress, you want to vote for Zoe Saldana, and you feel but you love Ariana Grande, then maybe you can vote for ensemble, and that's your way of like checking both off. Like, that's my thing with Conclave. Like, I mean, except for Ray Fiennes, like, who's really pushing for this ensemble to win this, where I feel like there are other contenders that they might want to push. Maybe in Nora, if you can't vote for Mikey or Yora in those specific categories. That's also kind of how I look at ensemble too.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Some of the previous winners were Oppenheimer, Glass Onion, I forget, Trial of the Chicago 7, like I mentioned, Moonlight won, stuff like those films. So sometimes it's SAG Ensemble, sometimes it's not. Three Billboards. So I don't know. When I look at the past winners, sometimes it's just like what makes and fits the most sense to me. And Conclave made a little more sense than Wicked to me. Black Panther year was the favorite instead of Black Panther. And I think that fits Conclave. The favorite.
Yeah.
Instead of Black Panther. So I think that makes it's Conclave. Because I think in this case, Wicked would be Black Panther and Conclave.
Listen, I think that with a lot of these, I feel like, and not to demean your picks, you're going, like, if it goes your way, I won't be surprised, because it's a lot of logic. It's expected. I just imagine that this is a year where unexpected things keep happening, both with the awards and outside the awards. So I'm going for the picks that I think would shake things up. And hopefully half of these will prove to end up happening.
Yes, we shall see. The tech categories, I think, are well, screenplay as well, are pretty. We disagree here. I am going with Anora for original screenplay. You are taking a little bit of a swing. I do think it's the number 2 in the category with The Substance. Yeah,
I mean, I think this just comes down to, do you think Anora is winning Best Picture? If you don't, which you don't have it winning, then yes, you should have it winning here. Because I think it's winning Best Picture, then I think that they'll maybe vote other places for The Substance. And I do think The Substance is starting to build the Everything Everywhere campaign of this is the most original screenplay, underlined original. So I could see it happening. But I also think The Substance didn't fare the best with CCA as far as other groups. So it could very well be Anora. And it could be Anora even if Anora wins Best Picture.
Again, Best Film here the only thing you have Anora winning?
No, I think it will win editing.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. And honestly, it might win screenplay. But again, I think it's worth mentioning The Substance, because I do think this given that it came on to this season way back, winning the Cannes Best Screenplay Award, I do think that this has been one to look out for in this category.
It's definitely the most original, which is oftentimes what they go for here. So we shall see. Easy one here with adapted screenplay, Conclave. The number 2 is probably Nickel.
Deserving.
Yeah.
It's a deserving win. And I just think people are compartmentalizing themselves. I mean, like, this is where Conclave is winning. Like,
maybe
it's locked in that box like Belfast was. I really think
Belfast won ensemble, though.
It's fair. It's fair. 2021, what was up? I'm trying to think. House of Gucci. Oh God, that was the House of Gucci. Yeah, Don't Look Up. Whoo!
What won at the SAG Awards that year?
Oh no.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. That might be a common theme.
Yeah. Foreign film. We both agree that it's Emilia Perez, but I do think it is worth pointing. Well, it's Emilia Perez after 5 days after the Golden Globes and before all the controversy, so it will be Emilia Perez because that was the voting period. If it happened post that and post I'm Still Here, then I think I'm Still Here would probably have a much better shot. But right now,
I mean, let's not forget that Emilia Perez, I mean, first off, it's on Netflix. It has uber popular movie stars in it. And I do think when it comes to the genre, it probably appeals more to a wider group than I'm Still Here. I'm Still is an adult drama. Like, it's like not everybody's going to vibe with that. Where Emilia Perez is, I think, a little bit more rambunctious, a little bit more sporadic, and that at least I think is pulling more people in. At the same time, there were controversies with Emilia Perez before, like this latest scandal with Karla Sofía Gascón.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like there were a lot of press about why Emilia Perez was problematic, especially in the week after it won the Golden Globe. So you never know. But yeah, I think that there was just not a big enough platform. And I don't think too many Brazilian journalists are in the CCA. So I think it'll be Emilia Perez.
Yeah, here I am still thinking that at the Oscars I'm still here because that here was not the benefit of the whole surge and the Emilia Perez decline was not happening here. But I do think future ceremonies such as BAFTA and the Academy Awards, I think it's more plausible. Animated film, similarly, we're both going Wild Robot flow. I feel like it's a big enough. I feel like the Critics' Choice is not quite as criticky as some of those smaller groups or even the Golden Globes at this point. That I think the Wild Robot being more, what would you say, crowd pleasing, and it was very, very well liked by critics. So I think it'll just be that. Cinematography, both going with The Brutalist. I do think Nosferatu or Dune could happen just because they were well liked by critics, but I feel like it's just going to be The Brutalist.
Yeah, I think there is one of I think it's going to win one of the crafts, production design or cinematography, and I think this is a clear category for it to win because I think Wicked is proving to be strong there. And yeah, I do think the other thing about The Brutalist that I think people are really responding to is it is the epitome of what Cord Jefferson talked about in his speech when he won Adapted Screenplay last year for American Fiction. Fund these smaller independent movies instead of funding these big, like for every $200 million movie, make, 10, $20 million movies, however the math is. It's late. So I think that's, to me, what I think this sort of category is responding to that and responding to The Brutalist overall.
Editing, it's challengers. I feel like that's much more liked by critics than it is by obviously the Academy. So I think it'll do much better here, just like at the Golden Globes and critics voting bodies. I think it's still doing, at least one of the films doing best in score and editing with the critics group. So it makes sense to me.
Let's hope. If not, Jack's going to punch his pillow again.
I will, for sure. But yeah, and also the alternatives. I think Dune is probably the only other option I would see here, unless Conclave wins film. So we'll see. Production design, this is easy. Wicked. Costume design, that's easy. Wicked, we don't need to really discuss. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Sweep there. Makeup and hairstyling, also don't really need to discuss. The substance, going to continue to sweep. Visual effects, wow, these are so easy, guys. Some of these tech categories we don't even need to really talk about just because it's so obvious. And we agree here as well with challengers winning original score. Kind of makes sense.
The Golden Globe win.
Kind of like stuff like that, where it doesn't end up getting at the Oscars, but it fits more of the Critics' Choice vibes. It could be Brutalist if Brutalist, like I said, just like sweeps a bunch of categories and wins. But challengers, I think, fits the critics more so. Song, like we were talking about earlier, there's just no alternative here, so it's just going to continue to be El Mal. And young actor and actress. This was close for me. I went with Isaac Wong for DD, just because I think that is probably more seen than Macy Stella and My Old Ass. But My Old Ass did, I think, do a lot of campaigning from what I've heard to this specific voting body. So it could also
discount Aubrey Plaza. I think she does a lot to help improve the image of that film.
Visibility.
Watch. But I mean, if you no disrespect to Macy Stella, who I think is a very likable young actor. I'm looking forward to more films from her. But if you've seen DD, Isaac Wang is just, I mean, the tumultuous emotions of that performance, the internal things versus the external moments. It's a beautiful, I mean, honestly, he should have been in contention for Best Actor outside of this age category. I mean, it was a worthy performance. And I think, I feel like you could have knocked somebody out and put him in. I wouldn't have raised my eyebrows too much. It's a beautiful performance.
Yeah, he's great. So we agree on that. So those are our Critics' Choice predictions, as well as everything going on with Emilia Perez. Comment your thoughts on that whole situation and your Critics' Choice predictions as well down below. Like the video, subscribe, stay tuned. We're in the heat of it, so plenty more to come. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.